Hi everyone, Gooftony Goobertano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Rae Jepsen album, The Loneliest Time. Canadian pop singer and songwriter Rae Jepsen is back, coming through with a brand new record, and it's one of my most anticipated of this year, because historically, Rae is an artist who gives a lot on her records, so I have come to expect a lot. However, I will say it was kind of tough formulating what exactly to anticipate from this project given the round of teasers that we had in the lead up, as we had the very breezy western wind with its super spacey production, heavy groovy hand drums, really washed out and droning synth patches. The track was handily the softest and sweetest lead single Rae had ever dropped, but simultaneously a little forgettable too, maybe just a bit too toothless for Rae, and I have to admit the song hasn't really grown on me since initially hearing it. There was also Beach House as well, which is my least favorite single of this album cycle. I can get down with the lyrical sentiment of the song as Rae describes all these various situations with these guys who she's dating, where issues and problems and red flags crop up, which make these boys volatile or untrustworthy. But I don't think the sultry, overproduced dance pop instrumental in the background really gels with her style, nor do the kind of sly and gross male group vocals, as much as they do play into the theme of the track. Still, they just add to a weird energy on the song that makes it feel like I'm listening to a Lonely Island cut or like an SNL sketch song. I've got a lake house in Canada and I'm probably gonna harvest your organs. There was also Talking to Yourself, which was an absolute banger, classic Rae from front to back, in terms of taking those classic synth pop and new wave aesthetics, but giving them a modern punch and an anthemic chorus. And then there was also The Loneliest Time, the title track of the LP, the closer of the LP, which features a surprise appearance from none other than Rufus Wainwright. And yeah, it's a really grand disco-flavored duet with some really endearing vocal chemistry that ends the album off on a very positive and hopeful note. Enjoy the lyrics about kind of getting back together, missing the other person. The strings and drum breaks on the track are a really nice touch too. It's a really beautiful and just feel-good cut. But there was little to no common thread running throughout all of these teasers, and I was kind of shocked to find that that's also the case for the greater album, which starts off fire, by the way. The first 3 tracks on this LP is maybe the strongest initial 3-song run of any pop record to drop in 2022. Surrender My Heart, classic Rae banger. Joshua Tree, classic Rae banger with some really sleek bassline passages too. And Talking to Yourself, as I already said, classic Rae banger. But things begin to fall apart past this point as we move on to the very bland and low-key Far Away, that dabbles in this really vague exoticism that feels more tacky than it does tasteful in terms of pulling from the sounds and vibes that it obviously is. Meanwhile, Sideways brings a perfectly solid piece of radio pop to the table with some kind of flirty rhythm guitars, but damn, the vocal pitching on the hook is so heavy-handed and distracting to the point where it just makes Rae's vocals sound really artificial, which is unfortunate because I think she's proven herself to be a perfectly capable singer over the years. I don't know why we're getting like this additional support and pitching if it's not really like adding to the quality of her voice, which it's not. Now, keep in mind, it's like not the worst application of this that I've heard all year. It's not as airbrushed as like, let's say, the vocals on the recent Post Malone record, but it's still enough to make things sound fake to a point where it feels a little awkward. There are maybe a few other moments in the track list here kneecapped by the same issue, but the vocal manipulations get absolutely ridiculous on the song Shooting Star, where Rae's vocals are messed with so heavily it feels like I'm listening to some kind of pitchy hyper pop disco robot go through some kind of malfunction issue. Yeah, it's pretty obnoxious. There are a few other highlights on the record I'd like to shout out. For one, Benz, which may not strike a lot of listeners as one of the best tracks here because it's such a slow burner, but some of the prettiest vocal melodies and chord changes on the entire LP land on this track. It's just kind of soundtracked by all of these very skeletal, simple, pulsating electronics in the background, which, again, different vibe, different flavor for Rae, typically, but it somehow really works. Sounds a bit like a Postal Service song in some respects, and totally wouldn't mind hearing more from her along these lines. Then there's Go Find Find Yourself or whatever, an acoustic ballad, or at least that's how it starts off. There's a bit of a country flair to it as well that I like. As the instrumentation grows on the cut, it begins to take some pretty interesting risks, like a little weird psych guitar lead passage, and also it sounds like far off in the distance some steel drums. Again, very weird things to include in this instrumental palette in a ballad of this vibe, but somehow it works. The progressive instrumental build of the track is great, the structure is great, the song, the sentiment in the lyrics is solid too. There's a lot of mixed emotions coming from Carly in the writing of this track. There are elements of her feeling hurt, dismissive, regretful. Again, the track is pretty low-key and subtle, but still manages to be one of the most emotionally potent spots here. But yeah, even though that's like really kind of a full round of thoughts on a majority of the material on this project, I feel like I somehow just it's really hard to put into words. This is a sizable record with some bonus tracks attached to it, and yet it somehow feels like I didn't really come away with that much. Like the record is somehow shorter and more meager than it actually is, but maybe that's just because I didn't really care for a lot of tracks here. I see this as maybe Carly's most inconsistent project thus far. I feel like she took a lot of shots in the dark on this one, frankly. Some of those risks panned out, some of them did not. A few tracks here and there kind of rested on her trademark sound, and in the end I think it all washed out into a record that isn't bad, but isn't amazing either. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, yes, but simultaneously this is an artist whose work I typically really enjoy and look forward to, and I was hoping to get more out of this record than I did. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Carly Rae Jepsen, forever.